I guess I've got another segment ready for you here. It's been a little while, but I've got some additional crash retrieval updates that I wanted to definitely put out there. This first case is also from the Leonard Stringfield book, UFO Crash Retrievals. And again, I'm going to provide my sources of where I'm getting this information. This first case is Dutton, Montana, 1953. Primary eyewitness is a man named Cecil Tenney. He was a civilian. This is page 16, abstract 11. And this is the entry sign that you see when you get into this town here. I'm going to go forward and just describe this case, and we'll see if this works here. Now, he's driving down the road in this pickup truck, and he sees this 100-foot-long cigar-shaped craft tipped up at about a 45-degree angle. And he said it looked like it was trying to keep itself up. It was struggling. This thing was about 100 feet in length, cigar-shaped craft. It had fire and smoke coming out of the back of this. And he's watching this. There's cars coming from the other direction. And then all of a sudden, there was an explosion. He was about 200 feet away from this thing. And this explosion caused these balls of fire to come down on the road, and it actually caught the tailpipes of the oncoming traffic on fire. So he saw all this while it was going on. So he goes another 5 miles down the road. He stops at a bar. He gets out, goes inside, and immediately the bar owner said that he smelled like lightning. Very odd, very, very strange. I mean, he just had to tell someone about this. So he eventually goes home. Later on that evening, a police officer also goes into the same bar and sort of files a report. And the bar owner told the police officer that a civilian had stopped in earlier and saw the same craft. So now this gentleman was on the radar screen. Later that night, the primary eyewitness gets a call from this general that you see on the upper right-hand part of Rudy's drawing here. I want to give credit to Rudy Gardea for the drawing. And during this call, the general says, "I want to see you." Those were the exact words, "I want to see you." So he came into the Air Force Base the next morning. He was brought down into this cinder block type building, and he was interrogated for hours. He was told to sign multiple NDAs that had 5 copies. And then as he was leaving this facility, he saw 2 military personnel with what looked like potato sack bags over their shoulders. And one of these guys tripped and he fell. And he said that the interior components of what were in these bags looked to be human body parts. He didn't know if they were human body parts or ET body parts, but it reminded him of some type of body parts that might be associated with the craft that he had seen earlier in the day. Now I'm going to move forward here. And I just want to point out that this is not a totally isolated incident. Let me hit you with this report here. This is Sao Paulo, Argentina, December 7th, 1954. I'm just going to read this report. A huge, peculiar cigar-shaped object appeared over Sao Paulo, Argentina on December 7th, 1954. The front part was large and round. The rest of the fuselage tapered down like a cigar. There were 2 open gaps near the backside where a dense smoke was emitted. A wide opening was observed on the undercarriage of the object where 3 discs emerged with a metallic flare. They were said to have been red in color. 2 of the disc-shaped objects split up, with one heading in a southern direction while the other headed north. The third disc remained in the vicinity of the craft and began maneuvering unbelievable aerial feats for an hour. The cigar-shaped object finally rose upward and vanished in just seconds. So here's another one of these cigar-shaped craft with smoke coming out the back of it. So it's completely not an unheard of phenomenon here. Let's continue on to the next case. This is Tom Bogan's drawing illustration that we put together just to give an idea of what this may have looked like, these massive cigar-shaped craft that we're getting reports of here. Now, that location, Great Falls Air Force Base, where this took place nearby, just happened to be later named Malmstrom Air Force Base site of a major UFO event in 1967, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with. I'm going to move forward here. And this has to do with these nuclear missile silo ICBM incursions and shutdowns. So this is Great Falls Tribune, September 28th, 2010. And here he said, Robert Salas, launch control officer at Malmstrom Air Force Base, confirmed that at least 10 ICBMs were disabled. So we're getting newspaper clippings of these. And I want to point out that if these gentlemen are smart enough and trustworthy enough to handle the national security of the United States by being in these underground missile silo ICBM launch control rooms, and they're competent enough to deal with nuclear missiles, shouldn't we believe them when they tell us that they're getting these UFO reports? I mean, they're already cleared for handling these, tremendously important national defense weapons here. Shouldn't we believe them when they also tell us that they're getting these reports on top side of these UFOs? I think we should. They're of the highest caliber of witnesses here. So here's kind of what it boils down to here. Nukes neutered. In 1967, Air Force Captain Robert Salas was at Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana when 10 ICBMs he was overseeing suddenly became inoperative amid reports of a mysterious red object glowing in the sky. So let's go to a little bit of a picture. These are what these things look like. Can you imagine being down in here for hours at a time and then getting reports of something on topside? Very interesting. So I went ahead and said, Rudy, let's see if we can do a drawing that encompasses all of these factors in one particular drawing. So here you've got the guards within the perimeter of the chain link fence. You've got a UFO on the outside. They called down to the launch control officer on the bottom right detail. And then off to the left, you've got these ICBMs getting ready to be launched. So this has been going on. Now, later when this was over, Boeing engineers came in, they examined all of the electrical components within the ICBM launch control room at the bottom of this silo here, and they came up with nothing wrong with the electronics. So something intelligent was shutting these things down. And the same thing happened in the former Soviet Union as well. So not only do we have it in America, we've got it in the former Soviet Union as well. Next case, Walker Air Force Base, New Mexico, April 12, 1954. Our witness served in the Air Force between 1954 to 1955, and this is UFO Crash Retrievals, page 82. I want to mention that Walker Air Force Base was prior to Roswell Army Airfield, the exact same location where we had the July 4th, 1947 Roswell incident. And we'll continue on. Now, this particular gentleman, he was an expert in photography, and he knew everything about cameras. So it was 7:15 p.m., April 12th, 1954. He and 3 other crew members were told to board an H-19 helicopter that you see here. And when they got in, over the intercom, they heard the following quote. This is a direct quote. Men, this is not a drill. This is a red alert scramble, and their crew was known as Rescue 4. So they pile in this helicopter, they take off, they head northbound. The highway is to their right, and then they make a left-hand turn. Now they're heading sort of near Corona. So they're heading northwest, just like where the original case happened in 1947. Now it's dark at this time. They get to this scene, and what do they see when they get there? They see this. About a 50-foot diameter disc-shaped craft that had augured in at about a 40-degree angle. They're hovering above this thing, so they open up this starboard door. He's looking down, and there's a spotlight shining down on the disc-shaped craft. The outer rim was still rotating counterclockwise, and it also had lights that were rotating counterclockwise. It had a dome on top, and he's looking and taking photographs with a still camera while he's hovering over this craft. He can't believe what he's seeing. Now, there were 4 bodies that were found laying on the ground near the craft that he could see. They were about 4.5 feet tall, oversized head, oversized eyes. They were wearing a tight-fitting dark blue flight suit. He's watching all this. Now, the helicopter lands about 100 feet away from the disc-shaped craft. He gets out, and the very first thing he notices is that the entire area, the entire localized area, is permeating with this absolute strong scent of automobile battery acid. That's the first thing he noticed. Next thing you notice is that there was a convoy of vehicles coming toward the disc-shaped crest. So you had Jeeps, you had 6x6 troop transport, you had other support vehicles. They got on scene now. And the ground crew told him you're not allowed to get any closer than about 40 feet away, but he was permitted to take photographs at the angle where he was. Now, he did not know on the other side of this craft, there was an entryway hatch where they found 2 more bodies, also deceased, for a grand total of 6 bodies. So a very interesting case. If you read this case in the book, you'll see, yeah, this guy's telling the truth. No reason to lie. And this battery acid thing pops up again and again as well. So 6-body retrieve on this one. Let's go to the, I want to give credit to Rudy Gardea for this drawing. Let's go to the full color rendering here. Illustration by Joel Payne. Now you can see this coming into view. You've got the lights rotating counterclockwise. We've got the bodies on the ground. There were 2 more inside. We got the dome on top. And by this time, the ground crew with the convoy, Jeeps, and 6x6 troop transport, they're already on the scene. So very good illustration. And, you know, as we go through these, the craft count goes up. The body count goes up. They're concealing these things. We've heard all about crash retrievals in these congressional hearings. Let's get to the physical evidence. Let's do it. Okay, let's go to the next case here. I want to give credit to Ruben and Noe for putting this report together. The Other Roswell, UFO Crash on the Texas-Mexican border. This is spring 1955, right across the Texas-Mexican border, south of Del Rio. And if you get this book, you can read about all the details. So what we've got is we've got multiple B-47s escorted by F-86s flying westbound over southern Texas. And all of a sudden, this disc-shaped craft goes right by their flight path. One of the F-86s breaks away, and you can see that in the cover of this book here. He does a low pass, and he sees this disc-shaped craft kind of auger in and then cause this debris trail. So what he does is he breaks left, starts heading north. He lands at Carswell Air Force Base. He gets out, goes into a car, drives to Corsica. He jumps in a small tail dragger, high wing Aranca training aircraft and flies back to the crash site. Believe it or not, before it gets completely dark. So let's move ahead here. Now you can see the map. Del Rio is up on the top. You've got the Rio Grande River, and where this thing came down is just south of the Rio Grande. So you've got 4 F-86 Sabre jets that are escorting 3 B-47s that are heading westbound north of Del Rio. Now let's go to the next drawing here. Now we've got the drawing by Rudy, who did just a fantastic job on this. Now, while in the foreground to the right, you've got the Aranca. He was with a friend, so there were 2 people. And what they described is a 25-foot diameter disc-shaped craft with a dome that popped off. It had left this debris trail. So there was this debris 6 inches across, 10 inches across. You know, there was somewhat I-beam looking crap debris, you could say. Now, off to the left, we've got a 6x6 troop transport. The Mexican military got there before the Americans did. Now, there was a hull breach on the side of the craft that you see Rudy had done a great job. And what I want to do next is I want to take you inside this craft itself. I would mention, before we go to the next blow-up drawing here, detailed drawing, that as it was getting darker in the evening, it started getting colder. And the primary witness said that he saw the Mexican soldiers go inside the back of this troop transport, pull out blankets, put the blankets over this hot debris, and then once it warmed up the blankets, they put those blankets on their bodies to keep them warm throughout the night. Just a bizarre comment that you wouldn't make up if this is a hoax. So let's go to the next drawing. And now you can start to see what these bodies look like. Now, this is our primary source is Air Force pilot Robert Willingham. And he said, quote, the arms look like broomsticks. So you can imagine these squiggly arms, emaciated, long, kind of like down below their knees. They were burnt. They were all deceased. 4 were recovered. And I'm going to take you to the next full color illustration just to give you an idea what this looks like. So this is credit Joel Payne. Want to give him credit for this. And now you can see this Aranca training plane. You've got the debris trail. You've got the dome popped off. You've got the Mexican soldiers that arrived before the American military. And this may be what it looked like according to the primary eyewitness. It's just so amazing to think that all of this could be real. Could these people actually be telling us the truth? I think they are. I mean, that's what these military firsthand witnesses are telling us. So now let's zoom in here. Let's get a better view inside. And now you can see it's a gruesome sight. These bodies were mangled. They were burnt. It wasn't for the faint of heart, for sure. Americans were involved later on in this case, but originally it was the Mexican soldiers that got there first. Okay, next one. Fort Riley, Kansas. This is December 10th, 1964. I do know the name of the primary eyewitness. He served in the infantry 1st Division. This is UFO Crash Retrievals, page 24, abstract 20 by Leonard Stringfield. And we'll go to the next slide here. Camp Forsyth. This is the location of where this thing came down. It was very early in the morning, so it was still dark out, like 2 a.m. So he and 3 other of his buddies get into this 6x6 troop transport, and they go through Camp Forsyth. They go about a mile into the range here. They get out and they're told to walk into this open field. And when they get into this open field, what they see is just incredible. We'll move ahead here. They see this craft. It's about 48 feet in diameter. It's 18 feet tall. It looks like a fat hamburger. It has these squares that are jutting out 10 inches from the outer circumference of the craft itself. It has a fin at the back end that kind of tapers. And if you do an aft view, you'll see that there's an exhaust port directly below this fin, which I'm going to show you a little bit later here. So this is my first attempt at a SolidWorks model illustration of what this thing looks like. You've got these squares jutting out from the outer circumference. And this is what this gentleman is seeing. And he's told to guard this thing for the duration of the night. There are other guards are with him as well. And we'll go ahead here. This is Rudy's drawing. You can see the Huey UH-1 Bell helicopter was hovering above this scene, shining this spotlight down. There were men with Geiger counters that were testing if this thing was hot around the outer circumference. And I want to go to the next full color illustration by Joseph to give you a good idea of what this thing actually looked like here. And this is by Joseph Wraith. Now you can see the entire thing coming into view. There were some spook group CIA types there. You've got the Huey UH-1 helicopter shining a spotlight. Now you can see this exhaust port. The fin is coming into view. And these are what these military sources are telling us. They just can't all be lying to us. They just can't. Let's go to another viewing perspective here, just to give a little bit of a different perspective. Can you imagine seeing this, guarding this thing during the night? He was actually shocked at what he could not believe what he was seeing. So very good case, December 1964. Let's go to the next case here. Now, just to follow up on the previous case, we have independent confirmation from a secondary source that saw an M123 tank trailer transporter with that same hamburger-shaped craft on top with tarps covering it and chains over the tarp that was leaving this area, going up a hill, and this guy was going in the opposite direction. He saw the convoy. He saw the tank transporter with the craft on top, covered by the tarp. So we've got independent confirmation that there was a retrieval operation. He also said that around the M123 tank transporter, there were men in biological hazard suits. So these chemical, biological protective suits with masks on, they were around this vehicle, just checking the dish-shaped craft. So independent secondary source confirmed it. Next one, Southwest, July 3rd, 1967. This could be Arizona. This could be New Mexico. It didn't say in the report, but this is page 86, case A5. Primary source was a Marine, rank private first class. So what he did is he boarded a plane with blacked out windows. They flew to an unimproved runway. When they landed, he got out and he saw two tents. He saw a Quonset style hut, and then he saw a prefabricated hangar building. His job was to guard these two tents and never to divert his pathway to where they were having kind of their meal area. Now, meantime, at this prefabricated hangar, one of these guards that was watching him had his back turned to our primary source here. So he walked over to this prefabricated hangar. He pulled back this flap and looked inside. And when he looked inside, he was shocked at what he saw. He said he saw a 30-foot diameter dish-shaped craft on the hangar floor. It had a small dome on top. He said that there were what looked like workbenches on the front part of this dish-shaped craft. There were white lab coat technicians near the workbenches, and it had like metallic analyzing equipment. There were calipers, there were micrometers, like they were testing the tensile strength of this craft. He also said that near the craft, there was a walk-in freezer and there were body bags. He didn't see any ET bodies, but he said there was absolutely a walk-in freezer and body bags. Now, later on, he was absolutely reprimanded and flown back to his original base. So let's go to the full color illustration just to give everybody an idea what this may have looked like. So you can kind of see him peeking through in the background here. You've got the white lab coat technicians. We've got the walk-in freezer. We've got the body bags. And again, this is a really good drawing by illustration by Joel Payne. Want to give him credit. These are what these witnesses are telling us. And when you get hundreds of these people coming forward, no reason to lie, they're not seeking fame or fortune. I think it's important that we analyze and take seriously this testimony from these firsthand military witnesses. And I'm going to continue with these crash retrieval cases. I want to thank you for your attention, and we will go on to our next group of crash retrieval cases on the next installment. Thanks very much.